decriminalization and legalization as options that are being discussed. And just for clarity, so that we are all on the same page, legalization is intended for the use in any context similar to alcohol. It is legal and you can use it in whatever context. The prescription for alcohol, of course, is based on age, but that is what is understood when you speak of the legalization of marijuana, that it can be used broadly. Whereas with decriminalization, we're more focusing on a narrow usage of it, more so for medical purposes. That is usually the focus with decriminalization, that there is some aspect of it that is allowed to happen legally, and sometimes it is decriminalized for personal use as well, depending on quantity, and that is the focus. And of course you are free to expand, contract on that very narrow definition within your own spheres of operation. But working with that as a working definition, and starting with you, Ms. Atkinson, if you could give us some guidance in terms of what your organization is doing in relation to the international conversation that is being had about decriminalization and or legalization of marijuana.
Well, thank you very much. Certainly at the National Council on Substance Abuse here in Barbados, as we continue to provide research and develop programs in the area of drug prevention and intervention, marijuana continues to occupy our attention. We've had many discussions in academia, in the community, in many spheres as it relates to the whole issue of decriminalization. We also recognize recent developments in the region, especially in Jamaica, and the effect that this has had in terms of what is happening in that country. So we recognize that we need to have firm data. We need to have research in terms of what are some of the issues here in Barbados as it relates to the impact that marijuana is having. And certainly at NCSA, we do a lot of programming in the schools, amongst the school-based population. And our research, our secondary school surveys, consistently up to 2015, when we had our last survey, it would have shown that things like the perception of harm around marijuana, a lot of our young people, even though we do consistent drug education and we teach life skills development, we recognize that over the period of the last 5 to 7 years, there has been a change in the perception of the harm that can be caused by marijuana use amongst our young adolescent population. We're talking about children between the ages of 12 and 15. And what is happening here is that we're seeing a very interesting phenomena occurring. As the perception of harm has gone down, which means basically more young people have the view, have internalized this view that marijuana doesn't do you anything. It is not quite harmful. When this perception has, as over time, as I said, this perception has gone up that marijuana doesn't really do you anything. What we have seen is an opposite effect in terms of use. So the more young people think that marijuana is not harmful, what is actually happening is that they're using more and more. Despite the fact that our education has been consistently addressing the issues of how it impacts the brain, how it impacts their behavior, their development, their capacity to judge, to make decisions and so forth. So this is something that really is troubling. We're also seeing more and more persons becoming involved in deviant behavior, in violent actions, being suspended from schools, going into our suspension center, having to intervene not only within the ambit of the school, but in the community, in their homes. We're also seeing on a national scale, younger and younger males being arrested for possession of marijuana, for the sale of marijuana, persons entering treatment at younger and younger ages. Right now we have most of our young persons being male and under the age of 35 or seeking treatment. And we're also seeing trends evolving in terms of the fact that it's not just for marijuana, but a combination of substances. So the NCSA certainly is continuing to collaborate. Actually, on the 27th of September, we will be engaging with a local symposium, which is being hosted by CARICOM, where we will be addressing the whole issue of decriminalization, the issue of legalization, the socioeconomic impact of marijuana in the Barbadian context, where the public will have an opportunity to weigh in together with our experts in different fields. I must stress, however, that currently our legislation does inform the illegality of marijuana in the Barbadian context. So despite persons' personal views, it remains an illegal substance here in Barbados. But certainly we need to have the firm data to inform where we go from here.
Okay, just for comparison, what is the situation like in Trinidad?
Well, there is a discussion starting also in the context of the same discussion, legalization, decriminalization. It's a little bit further off than Barbados. It's a dialogue that has started and people are engaged in it. But it's going to take a little time before that has any maturation in the Trinidad sense. However, regardless of the language we use, whether it's legalization, decriminalization, zoned use of it, whatever, the use of substances, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and so on, has an impact on the human body, the human system. And there are cost implications, whether it's legalized, whether it's decriminalized, whatever. There are implications that we must be alert to. Medical implications, health implications, lifestyle implications. And the Trinidad experience has been, while it is not legalized or decriminalized, it is very rampant. So that isn't going to change in the sense of what language we come up with at the end. It is very rampant. But the beneficiaries, I know you've been leading to this question a little bit, in the economic sense, it's not the country. It's not the national economy that is benefiting. It's a group of investors. A group of investors that benefit anyhow you take it. If you legalize it, you decriminalize it, or you just leave it like Trinidad where it's rampantly used, this group are very brilliant, intelligent strategists. And they have the money to invest in the importation, in the distribution, in the propaganda that goes with it, whatever title we give it. And they are the ones. That does not filter down to the ordinary pusher or the user or abuser or the people who come to it. Does not even go to the rehab centers. That has to be assisted with government grants and donations. These people who benefit from it economically are extremely wealthy and make more and more wealth for themselves and their circle. So anybody who believes that there's this filtering down that will now economically benefit a country and be useful, the mafia has that controlled. In Trinidad, we have these people who have designed, this is what I will control, this is the area you will control, and they meet and they plan and they know what they do, but the money and the prosperity that comes from it stays within this group.
Is there a way to break that cycle? And I throw out for discussion the very topic that we have, the decriminalization, where they would introduce some element of governmental oversight.
Now, I agree with Majan in terms of whether it is criminalized, legalized, prohibited, is it, and the experience in most countries, in most territories that have it prohibited and not prohibited, the use of it is not going to change. What my concern is the message it sends to the public and to particularly the youth. Let us take a lesson from alcohol and tobacco. These are two legalized substances. And as a result of that, the impression is that they're harmless. There's nothing wrong with it. People have easier access to it. People therefore use it. They become addicted to it. It is even hard to get those persons to understand the health risks of using these drugs. So when you speak about it, okay, well, there's no difference in use, no more people going to be using it or not, but the perception of the public, particularly the youth, on the perceived harm of these of marijuana, of these substances, is what will indicate they're using it and how much they use it and their maladaptive pattern of using these drugs. Not recognizing and cognizant of the fact of the dangers these substances have to their body, to their function socially in the community. And we have two leading examples of legal drugs already, marijuana and alcohol. In most territories in the world, there's a significant percentage of motor vehicular accidents that are attributed to alcohol intoxication. The association between tobacco smoking and lung cancer is well proven and astronomical, to the point where persons have no, tobacco companies have no conceded, okay, but we will put a black label on it, right, in this country, so you know that if you smoke this pack, you know, there are serious health risks. But how many people read it? How many people take it on? The message that is sent with the decriminalization and legalization is the hardest hit in the perception of the public, and that will drive the maladaptive pattern of the use, and not recognizing the harmful benefits or the harmful effects. People in Barbados as a culture, weed natural. Ain't nothing with a little weed. Weed in processed and things. It's a natural drug. It's a plant. Not realizing that a lot of drugs are natural and come from plants. But in order for you to use, the more popular way to use marijuana is to smoke it. And as I said before, anytime you burn a plant, you're going to get ash. You're going to get a substance, tar. You're going to get tar. Embedded in the tar is the carcinogens, the chemicals that have been proven to cause cancer. And you're going to get that built up in your lung. There's going to be no difference between the look when you when you look at the lung of a tobacco smoker and a marijuana smoker. They're going to all look black the same way. It is not the effect on the use. It is the effect on the perception. And persons not recognizing and cognizant of the fact of the danger and the health risks associated with its use. We speak about the crime associated with it, the behavioral changes. You get adolescents using this and becoming very irritable and angry. I noted there was in Barbados recently, people noted that, everybody, all the youth walking around with a face vex, with a screw face, because everybody angry about something. Is that the marijuana? Is that any other drug? Is it a combination? Does marijuana aid in that? We speak about the criminal element. It being economically beneficial to a select few who engage in its sale. And they keep it, the majority of their funds, they keep it amongst themselves because it's to their benefit, and they will filter some down the line to the street man. But most criminal elements, if you legalize the substance that they're pushing illegally, that is not going to convert their business into a legal trade. They will find another product to push. And my question is, what is the product that will come into Barbados next to push?
I want to shift focus ever so slightly, but remain concentrated on you, Dr. Chase. Now, within our legislation, marijuana and cocaine are proscribed drugs. They can have a legal application.
Right.
Yes. So they're not illegal as of right.
I contain
Yes.
that fact.
Now, understanding that cocaine is a gradation, a step up, if not more than one step up from marijuana. I want to overlay that information with the reality that cocaine is allowed medical use, but marijuana is not. Can you justify that?
It has to do with the documented clinical safety of the use of marijuana, and that the status of that of those research at that point in time. At this point in time, cocaine was around from the 1980s and not 1980s, 1800s, the late 1800s, and a little before that, and their use or the documented harm in cocaine was really documented or described by Sigmund Freud. And it is his documentations and his description of the addictive pattern that then triggered research into the harmful nature of cocaine. And therefore then they realized, okay, well, we need to really monitor the use of this drug. We already notice and we already know the effects of marijuana, right? There are good medicinal properties in the plant, but the research is still coming. There is positive in terms of there's some chemicals that are being used to treat, as I said, inflammation, pain, nausea, increased appetite in persons who have conditions with low appetite. But it is in the research. Any drug that is prescribed has to be first found to be safe and effective. FDA has a very detailed roadmap from identifying your drug and having it approved, and that is for any drug. It's not new to marijuana, and that is, it has to follow the process. But we speak about medical marijuana, and again I say that sometimes the concept of it is viewed very ill, in very wrong way, I should say. They say, okay, it has medicinal properties, so we should take the plant and smoke it. I say again, if you use a good thing in a bad way, you will have a bad effect.
Fair enough.
Right? But what some territories have done is they've decriminalized it in order to facilitate research of the plant in the aim to produce medications from the plant, or to get to really use it to treat some of the conditions and to find out which condition it is, even to decide on a mode of delivery of this drug. So yes, research. The reason why it isn't right now prescribed, because the research has not shown as yet that it is safe, you have a safe delivery method, and that it actually is effective in what it's doing in clinical trials.
This is not the forum to challenge that statement, but I want to overlay on a timeline Gardasil, which is a very new drug, in the arena for a much shorter space of time than marijuana. There are questions still about its safety, but still it is allowed use. Can you explain what the difference could be?
That is a question that is very loaded, but is probably very multifaceted. And Gardasil, in order for you to get FDA approval for its use, it has to meet certain criteria, which clearly they have been able to meet. They've been able to isolate the compound that's in Gardasil. They've been able to ensure the consistent delivery of the dosage of Gardasil, whether or not it's effective or not. That is, like all new drugs, they come on the scene, they have a beautiful profile, and then after years of use on the market, they realize there's certain effects here that they didn't see in the clinical trials before it was approved.
And you get
Is
the
that
legal aspect.
Yeah.
Tagging on, we see all the
Correct.
ads on TV
Oh
afterwards.
yeah, you know.
Yes.
But the difficulty is that the medicinal marijuana has not yet gotten to that stage because they've not yet been able to isolate compound or compounds that are helpful in particular diseases or disorders and deliver them in a safe way and ensure the consistency of dosage of these compounds. And that is where a lot of research and a lot of money is being spent in Israel looking at making this getting it FDA approved, and that is a difference.
Just wanted
Yes,
to,
yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to come back to a point that you alluded to very early in our discussion, and it should not be lost from the Trinidad context. Where we have reached is almost disastrous. We had one recovery center, New Life Ministries. I was involved in setting it up. We have about 10 now. We did not have young people in the schools using marijuana the way they're using it and moving up to the other drugs and the criminality and so on. So there's no question about its damage in a socio-economic sense. There's no question about it. But here are some questions that are provocative for Barbados based on the Trinidad experience. Who wants the drugs in a country? Who is the real people behind huge amounts of cocaine, marijuana, whatever coming into the country, and why? It's purely for the mafia economic benefit. Are these people so smart? Do you all know in Barbados who is that little group that wants the drug, whether it's legalized, decriminalized, or just allowed to happen culturally as a Jamaican experience, a Trinidad experience? Who is this group that is finding ways strategically to make sure that this thing is done? Who is talking about it in a particular way in the media? Who knows how to set up the businesses so that the money could be laundered in a way that looks legal and fine? Who is in charge of the distribution, and who determines which group goes? What happens when these groups are empowered and now they're fighting for turf? Trinidad has 300 and something murders for this year so far. It has gone beyond expectation of murders. 300 and something murders. I can't remember the exact figure. 90% are drug-related murders, fighting between the turfs. Who is benefiting from this? You know, the people who are benefiting economically. I didn't want to lose that point. They are invisible. You will have to work with in your clinics and your places and the other clinics here and help people. And yes, we will do that anyhow you take it. It will happen. But the people who are benefiting economically and who are well organized are invisible. And Barbados should ask some questions. Is there a gang culture evolving around drug distribution? I know that you all wouldn't ask that. I'm from Trinidad and I will be leaving in a few days. I could ask it. Is there a gang culture evolving in Barbados that is linked somehow to drugs? Are there people in this country, as it is in my country, who are mafia-based and they are bringing in the drugs and they know how to bring it in and they have the money that they're getting from it? Are they buying politicians? I don't know. I don't know if that is true in Barbados, but I think it's true home. Are they? This needs to be provoked in Barbados. Barbados is a place of intelligence and culture and sometimes denial. I have friends who are here and we could have this conversation and then we deny what is really happening and what needs to be done. This conversation, and we have to congratulate the bishop and the church for stimulating it and provoking it, but this conversation must not go on like a conversation in Barbados. Some deep and courageous battles have to be fought here, regardless of the words legalization, decriminalization, all of that. This drug culture is a dangerous thing. And we in our country in Trinidad, We are suffering from the murders, the criminality, the destroyed home. The psychiatrist was telling us what's happening to the unborn baby. There needs some real deep and courageous discussions in anywhere in Barbados where it's heading. Yes, this is the start. This is a beautiful start, a profound start. There are people who are pro it and they're anti it. That is really minor. It is a culture of dependence on drug abuse and mafia riddled communities and societies and groups and gangs and murders. Ask the questions in Barbados. Are you seeing it on the horizon? We saw it on the horizon and we did nothing about it. And now we must pay a price in Trinidad, where the whole world knows about our murder system. And tourism has been affected in Tobago and in Trinidad. Is this linked to the decriminalization or legalization of marijuana, linked to a tourism concept? I don't know. I'm provoking because I am the Trinidadian who will leave in a few days. We thought that there is a whole group of people who travel the world now and they walk with the money, but they want to come where it's legally safe to use the marijuana. Is that behind the thing? So there's some provocative questions that need to be asked in the bigger picture.
Yes. I don't know if this is the forum for it though, given what our focus is in terms of those questions. I do hope that we can deal with them and at another stage. But certainly following on from that and the criminality, I want to speak to you, Ms. Atkinson, about the drug treatment court.
Mm-hmm.
How does this fit in with any policy that could be developed in relation to the decriminalization or even legalization of marijuana?
Well, certainly.
And we do have
yes.
2 minutes left.
Well, certainly here in Barbados, one of the serious issues we're grappling with is what are the alternatives? Because consistently we're seeing increases in terms of primarily young males and younger persons being faced with going before the courts
Yes.
for possession and sale of marijuana in particular.
Yeah.
And therefore we have to find alternatives. In 2014, we moved to the point where we introduced our the Barbados Drug Treatment Court. It's still in a pilot phase, but thus far we've been able to graduate at least 10 individuals who have been able to have the necessary support systems and the treatment that is necessary to address the problem. Because again, we go back to the root of the problem. We have persons who are using, younger and younger persons. The perception is that marijuana cannot harm them. But the reality is that it is harming more and more people, not just physically, but socially, etc. And therefore, Drug Treatment Court offers that alternative to persons going to prison and receiving the help that they need to address the root cause.
And also getting criminal records and taking themselves outside of the employability line.
Exactly. So it is a wider question, yes, but we need to find viable alternatives that are suitable, that can derive, solutions where we don't have our population immersed in drug abuse, and basically people can have more alternatives rather than getting involved in drug use and deviance, and recognizing that they can achieve their potentials without being involved in the drug trade.
I want to thank all of you for your time, and of course your contributions are much appreciated. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Certainly we extend our thanks to our panel, Ms.